Hello and welcome today to the Air Ampersand Cosmos studio, which is exceptionally hosted today at Thales, and we are going to talk about air safety and the prospects in the field with Thibault Liblin. Hello.
Hello, Xavier Titleman.
You are from OSAC.
That's exactly right. OSAC. Above all, I'm the Director of Aeronautical Activities at the APAV Group, which has been working for the Directorate General of Civil Aviation for over 15 years in the field of aviation safety through its subsidiary OSAC.
So, I start with a preconceived notion. When you look at the media, it feels like aviation safety is getting worse, that there are more accidents, more incidents. Is that just an impression or is it reality?
Yes, indeed. I think we're dealing with an issue related to overexposure in the media, so it's really just an impression. In the end, with every accident, especially when they happen near airports, videos multiply. We have every angle, and in the end, all of this is something that certainly multiplies the stress factors. And yet, when you look at the numbers, that's not true at all. Air safety, on the other hand, is improving. As you know, air traffic has exploded over the last 20 years. When you look at all the traffic combined, it's almost 9.5 billion passengers being transported, including 4.5 billion with the major airlines. And yet we don't have many accidents. We're talking about just a few each year. If we look at the numbers over the last 5 years, the number of accidents is around 2 accidents for every million flights.
So, that's very low. But do these numbers differ much globally, like between Europe and North Korea, or are they about the same?
I'm not sure that International Civil Aviation Organization has the numbers for North Korea. To be clear, the numbers I mentioned are from International Civil Aviation Organization. And actually, when you look at the year-over-year history, we're really talking about a total of 10 accidents in the year. So if you have one more in Europe, one less in Asia-Pacific, or vice versa, in the end, there's not really much difference in commercial aviation. There are so few accidents that it's impossible to establish a ranking.
So one more or one less accident changes the statistics so much.
By the way,
regarding the stats, people mention various places, but those accidents happened 10 years ago and can't occur now, so these stats don't reflect current air safety.
That's why I was looking at recent trends in the last 5 years, especially when you look at the Asia-Pacific region where traffic is clearly increasing. That's very important.
In terms of explosion, today it's not yes?
Indeed, we're talking about a strong increase. It's increasing significantly indeed. And so it's important to relate this to the activity and not just focus on one event or another before moving on.
A quick word from our partner, thanks to whom we can make these videos. And our partner today is who has never dreamed of starting their own business and becoming independent or simply supplementing their salaried income. The only problem is the administrative paperwork. 64% of entrepreneurs believe that it's difficult to understand the rules and regulations that apply to their business. And 55% of small businesses spend more than 40% of their working time handling administrative tasks. That means you have people who will give up on starting a business or who will abandon their company simply because they can't manage all these requirements. And that's where Legal Place will save you. It offers a complete solution for starting a business, including help with choosing the legal structure, opening the business account, publishing legal notices, then registering your company in the professional registries and getting it incorporated. That means it will only take you about 10 minutes instead of struggling for hours and hours. Then they can provide a registered address for your business, which allows you to keep your own address private. And overall, you'll still save money on property taxes. They'll also be there to help you with the day-to-day running of your business so you can manage your accounting. They'll also handle mandatory procedures for you like drafting meeting minutes, preparing and filing financial statements, as well as communicating with the court registry, which is always a relief. Once a year, they'll also take care of tax filings. So, overall, whether you're starting your business or it already exists. Legal Place is the simple, fast and comprehensive solution that can adapt to all your needs to save you time, all for a very attractive price. It's no coincidence that Legal Place already supports over 12% of entrepreneurs starting businesses. So, follow the link provided with this video or use the code TITLEMAN15 to get a 15% discount. And focus on your work instead of wasting time on administrative tasks. Alright, let's get back to our topic. Very concretely, what do we do when there are countries that no longer follow the rules? I'm thinking very recently about Russia, which, for example, stopped following the recommendations. Who agreed to use aircraft parts that are no longer suitable? Do we quickly see a decline in aviation safety statistics?
In air transport? International Civil Aviation Organization since 1944 has been uniting the world for more than 80 years and setting common safety rules. So it's clear that a country like Russia is going to set itself apart a bit.
D. It was refused a seat on the International Civil Aviation Organization board twice, just last week.
And so, in fact, when you refuse to follow the rules, in the end, you exclude yourself from this community, from air transport. And very quickly, in the end, it will limit the country's air activity to its own airspace, and it will limit the activity of that country's airlines. They will no longer be able to go, let's say, to International Civil Aviation Organization countries, except through bilateral agreements. We know very well that the Russians go to Turkey, but we see that's the only way out. Afterwards, do we see a decline in safety? You have to see aviation safety as a fairly complex system with a lot of redundancies. In the end, it's a whole system. It's an aircraft. It's pilots, well-trained pilots, air traffic controllers. And it's really the proper coordination of this ecosystem that will ultimately generate safety. And so indeed, if one of the elements could fail, the others will compensate, so we won't have an immediate degradation. But it's clear that not applying the right fundamentals, and I would say at the very least, the 19 International Civil Aviation Organization annexes, will eventually lead to a decline in safety.
This means the international level isn't as reliable as the national one. But for example, can you say you don't know? An operator plans to launch a route in Africa where reliability can be an issue. Can you prepare safety measures for this route's arrival?
I think there are two cases. If we're talking about a French operator who is going to set up a stopover further away, indeed we will apply the same rules as those in France. That's the first point. Now we can ask this question regarding chartering. Because when a travel agency organizes a trip with several segments, it will ask itself how to ensure the safety of its clients during this trip. And up to the last point, I think there are several answers to that. First of all, there are a number of certifications in Europe. International Air Transport Association promotes a certification called IATA Operational Safety Audit, which is quite well known. And ultimately, through this certification, it allows the travel agency to make sure that the airline is indeed IATA Operational Safety Audit certified. I would say that it makes their job easier now in the context of the activities we can carry out within the APAV group. It happens to us with companies that don't have leisure activities, but rather professional activities in difficult areas, to go audit the local airlines to make sure that the personnel who are going to be transported are not in danger. Over there,
we see quite a few issues around the traceability of spare parts. For example, we remember the crash of the Boeing 737 MAX at Lion Air. Basically, it was because they had a sensor that they had recovered a kind of salvage part. We also see that in Russia and in Iran, there are a lot of diversions. Can we guarantee the safety and traceability of the spare parts that are installed on our aircraft?
we work a lot in an ecosystem, and I would say that a supply chain is really a complex system in which each customer has to control their supplier and so on. Now, it's true that today, with the acceleration of aircraft production rates and the increase in air traffic, there is a strong rise in the demand for spare parts. And in these tight markets, of course, it sharpens the appetite of potential fraudsters who see a profit. It's easy to do with parts, sometimes second-hand parts, or sometimes even small parts that aren't properly certified, not authentic. And that's where I think we're still in a system where it's a bit of a community-based approach, where everyone, by checking their suppliers, must quickly raise the alarm as soon as they see a sign and share that information. There are a number of channels that allow you to report security incidents. And then, at that point, the authorities take up the matter, coordinate, stop the activity of the company in question, and then support an action plan to return to normal. Because maybe the company managed to distribute 100,000 parts, they need to be found, removed, and replaced with compliant parts. And so these are things that are done. What we can regret in the technological context is not yet having an off-the-shelf solution that would ensure traceability.
For example, I saw that there were blockchain projects.
That kind of thing exactly. Today, it's not something that's supported by the authorities. It's the industry itself that has taken up the issue in response to this threat to its activity that has taken up the subject. And today, the major contractors are testing blockchain-based solutions to trace the origin of even the smallest washer or resistor in a computer in order to authenticate each of the players in the supply chain, which, it must be acknowledged, are quite complex and inevitably globalized in the aeronautics world.
This also raises another question. For instance, we see aircraft like the C919 or MC-21 being certified that aren't American or European. If the Russians had been able to continue, how do we also guarantee reliability? Do they have the same level of control as if it were an Airbus aircraft, for example?
So first of all, you have to think of the airplane as a huge Lego set. Yes, the Comac airplane is indeed an aircraft from a Chinese manufacturer, but it actually contains a lot of components that are European and American.
And approved?
And so already approved. What's at stake is the Chinese aircraft manufacturer's ability to create a robust structure and its ability to integrate systems. All these parts, which individually work very well on other aircraft, whether it's a 737 or an A320, still need to be properly integrated and be able to ensure the operation of the flight at the same time, in its normal operations, but also in various degraded modes. At this stage, the Comac is certified in China, it flies in China. When you look at it, the Chinese domestic market is more than enough for its commercial launch. It could operate from China with Chinese airlines on the periphery. The standard, let's say the International Civil Aviation Organization type certificate, would allow it to do that in all International Civil Aviation Organization member countries. Traveling to Europe would be a bit complicated.
With no automatic reciprocity like we have between Europe and the United States.
No, absolutely not. And so for the Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China to one day be operated by a European airline, it will have to be certified by the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, and that's a process that's underway, so it's necessary. It's interesting that the Chinese have raised the issue with Europe, but not with the United States. Certainly, geopolitics has an influence on these choices, and the director of European Union Aviation Safety Agency has taken a position on the subject. He has already stated that it would take 3 to 6 years to actually verify this integration and the robustness of the structure according to European standards, and that it would require numerous tests. And finally, the same constraints, or maybe even more, I don't know, as those applied to Airbus in Europe.
But would they also have the possibility to be just as transparent? Because for us, after all, we deliver. I'm not going to say industrial secrets, but when we certify a plane in China or elsewhere, we also validate technical choices. Would the Chinese accept to have that level of transparency? Yes, that's another question.
I can't put myself in their shoes, though. What we can say is that today, even though certainly the balance of power in the world is bound to change in a few decades, let's discuss aeronautics since the cycles are lengthy. What we can see is that any potential short-term commercial success of this machine can only happen through European and American certification. Because otherwise, no financier, neither banks nor aircraft leasing companies, will want to invest their money in a machine that doesn't have this certification. Because today, we have to admit that our European regulations may be criticized. In the world of agriculture, that's another debate. What we can say is that from an aeronautical point of view, it is effective, and today it is acclaimed worldwide.
We have regulatory power, at least in the field of ecology and safety, that is unmatched. Now, exactly on this issue, let's get back to OSAC. You said that you were a service provider for the Civil Aviation Authority. I'm not sure if that's the right way to put it. What does that mean exactly?
The Directorate General of Civil Aviation is responsible for organizing air transport in France, essentially making sure that this transport is carried out under good conditions in terms of safety. Air transport can be threatened, and above all, security within the Directorate General of Civil Aviation.
I'll explain the difference. Safety is about making sure our planes don't get shot down by the Russians when they're flying over Azerbaijan.
Yes, it's about preventing any malicious acts against air transport, so that's what safety is. So, malicious acts can range from harming a passenger all the way to
Bringing bombs onto our planes?
DHL. So, that's one of the pillars, safety and security. That's what we focus on. It's about preventing any accidents. It's a whole system, an ecosystem. It's quite broad. The Directorate of Civil Aviation Security within the Directorate General of Civil Aviation coordinates all these activities and carries out a large part of the inspections, especially in the operational field regarding air navigation and airports. And this directorate made a choice, which is very, very old, to outsource inspections in the field of aircraft production and aircraft maintenance. So this ultimately led the Directorate General of Civil Aviation to choose a single service provider to carry out these inspections. The contract is renewed every 6 years. And I'm happy to work for the group. APAV, which has won this tender 3 times in a row and has been carrying out its missions for 15 years.
This means you have specialists and engineers visiting assembly lines or Air France industries to ensure the work is done correctly.
So making sure the work is done properly. We do carry out a certain number of inspections, but obviously we're not behind every mechanic, every hour of the day and night. On the other hand, we first look at whether their organization meets the regulatory requirements and whether their procedures are properly implemented. All these safety measures that are recommended by the regulations, are they applying them?
Have you ever found any discrepancies?
So you mentioned companies and others. Yes, well, there's a bit of confidentiality. Obviously. If there were never any discrepancies, we wouldn't need a regulatory authority, so the system would work. You have to understand that we're still dealing with a complex activity, and it requires a certain amount of resources. So yes, there are discrepancies related to the complexity of the system, but also in relation to the resources that are required. Did we shut down an airline? It may have happened to us, but we see that often it's the economic situation that ultimately leads us to stop the expenses. Because the company no longer has the means to ensure proper daily maintenance, we carry out a number of inspections in the companies. There are discrepancies, and we support them. There are action plans, always for improvement. We always try to do better. And what we can say is that it's without stopping all operations. Sometimes we notice an anomaly on a plane, which can lead to grounding a plane for a few hours, just enough time for the company to do what's necessary. Now, fortunately, it's a system where we are, let's say, the third level of control after the company itself and its quality system. They've already found most of the issues at their level.
It means in Europe we notice when doors aren't properly attached.
But indeed, you say that. He has a matter of distribution and delegation that can be given to the companies. We are also in Europe in an approach where we want to make companies accountable. It's their responsibility, it's their commitment to deliver compliant products. However, what I can say is in the field of production, just at the scale of France. I have about 30 inspectors who constantly travel around all the factories in France. Just on the subject of aircraft manufacturing, I have another 30 who monitor all the airlines on a daily basis. Simply on the maintenance aspect, it's huge.
When you fly, do you ever notice discrepancies, or does everything seem fine?
2 things. I come from the world of aeronautical maintenance, so I always have an expert eye. Now, when we go on a plane, we mostly see the cabin. It's more a matter of passenger experience than of safety.
No worries in that area?
Absolutely none.
Thibault, thanks. That was very interesting. We might add links to the organizations. Are you recruiting or have ongoing activities?
Yes, indeed. In the entire aviation sector, we're always recruiting. APAV and OSAC in particular are no exception.
Links will be in the video comments. Hope you enjoyed it. See you soon at Studio Air at Cosmos.
Thank you.